Call the meeting to order. I have to read a brief introduction before we get started. The Design Adjustment Committee's purpose is to establish clear and measurable review criteria for the consideration of major deviations from the city's technical standards and specifications. The DAC does not consider housing type, cost of the proposed unit, occupants, building material, unit size, number of bedrooms, or the architectural design of the structures. These hearings are quasi-judicial evidentiary hearings. That means it's like a court hearing, and the committee's decisions are constrained by the standards in the ordinance and based upon the facts presented. All variance requests require a 4/5 vote of the committee to grant the variance. Appeals of the Design Adjustment Committee decisions are to Superior Court. The parties to these cases are entitled, if a board member has a fixed opinion on the matter, a financial interest in the outcome, a close relationship with the affected person, or has had any ex parte communication about the matter, please disclose that information to determine if a recusal is necessary. City staff will introduce the proposed project to the committee, and committee members may ask questions. The applicant may present additional information about the project, and the members may ask questions. If anyone wishes to provide evidence at today's hearing, witnesses must sign in on the clipboard in the back of the room and be sworn in. Because witnesses are to provide sworn testimony, please focus on the facts and the standards, not personal preference or opinion. When a witness comes forward to give testimony, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and speak clearly. First item up on the agenda today is approval of the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at them? If so, any discussion?
Motion to approve.
I'll second. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. First item is Circle K on Dawson Street. Do we have a staff presentation?
If I could have staff, applicants, and anyone else who wishes to speak today to please stand up and raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. The site includes approximately 1.79 acres. It's currently developed with a commercial structure that is vacant. It's a form of retail use. It's zoned UMX Urban Mixed Use District, and the applicant is proposing to rezone this site to a community business conditional district to allow for another retail use with accessory fuel pumps, so a gas station. This is tentatively scheduled for October 3rd, 2023. This site has frontage on 17th Street, Dawson Street, and South 16th Street. The existing access is provided by a full access driveway on Dawson Street, and then two left-in, left-out access, one on 16th and one on 17th. The proposal replaces the existing full access driveway along Dawson with a one-way ingress driveway along the western end of the property and a one-way ingress driveway on the right turn lane and a right turn lane on the eastern side of Dawson Street frontage. The driveways on 16th and 17th Streets would remain unchanged. The LDC requires parking facilities to meet the ingress and egress requirements prescribed by our technical standards. The technical standards specify that a minimum corner clearance of 230 feet is required along major thoroughfares. The applicant proposes a maximum clearance that does not meet this standard, and adjustment is required. And the tech standards also specify that property line offset be a minimum of 75 feet along major thoroughfares, and the applicant proposes a maximum driveway offset that does not meet this standard, and adjustment is required. Placed in front of you before the meeting were updated plans and updated waiver request letter. This is based on an amended plan that was provided by the applicant before, after the packets went out. You can see the numbers that are in like the red boxes. They represent the new numbers. All these numbers increased, so the waiver requests would be decreasing in these situations. This is based on a scaling error that they had in their office, and they just provided that updated information. Staff would like to enter that information as well as the staff report into the record. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is prepared to make a presentation as well.
Any questions? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Does the applicant wish to speak? Thank you.
Good afternoon. Amy Schaefer with Lee Case. I'm here with Rick Baker from Timmons Group. I'm just going to introduce the project briefly and then let Rick speak to the technical aspects of our request. This project is 1618 Dawson Street. As Mr. Chambers said, it is located on a lot which has 3 frontages. It is a vacant structure right now. I think it's been vacant for a few years. The plan is to completely renovate the entire parcel and to bring it up to current code. As you can see, we're right here on the corner with the three frontages, as we said, 16th, 17th, and Dawson. What we're hoping to do is maintain the driveways as they are currently located on 16th and 17th Street, and then modify the driveway on Dawson Street, which would be to the top of the property here. As you can see, the current conditions right now, we do have driveway accesses on both of those street frontages, and then again on Dawson Street. And with that, I am going to pass this over to Mr. Baker. Mr. Baker, if you could just come up, give your name and your certifications, please.
Thank you, Amy. Members of the board, I'm Rick Baker with the Timmons Group, 5410 Trinity Road, Suite 102 in Raleigh. We're the engineer on the project, and I'm a professional engineer in the state of North Carolina. It's good to be with you here today. We've got 3 waiver requests, so I'll walk through each one. I'll flip back and forth a little bit, talk about the request, then flip to an aerial to help show you what we're talking about, and glad to answer any questions, of course, along the way. We could talk about one and get the questions asked and answered then and go to number 2 if you prefer, or have all the questions at the end. I'll let you guide me on how you'd like to do that. So the first waiver request, it's the Dawson Street driveway. The requirement is for corner lots to have a minimum corner clearance of 230 feet along major thoroughfares and/or 60 feet along all intersecting side streets not classified as major thoroughfares, and there's the code reference. What we are proposing is to remove the full access drive on Dawson, add a one-way egress on the western end of the property with an 80-foot plus or minus distance from the corner, and then add a one-way ingress with a right turn lane on the eastern end of the property with a 67-foot plus or minus distance from the corner. Let me go to this slide to show you those distances. If you'll see, Dawson Street is to plan north, 16th Street is to the plan left, and 17th is to the plan right. Where that egress driveway is, that's the location of the existing driveway that is both ingress and egress. So we're proposing to put an egress lane only there, and that spacing from the corner of 16th Street is about 80 feet. Then on the plan left, you'll see the ingress lane with a right turn lane, and that spacing is about 67 feet from the corner of 17th Street. Any questions so far? Okay, I'll go back to our justification for this. So the property is a corner lot for both South 16th Street and South 17th Street with a frontage of about 327 feet. So meeting a 230-foot clearance on both sides is not achievable. Both WIMPO and NCDOT proposed this access strategy in a meeting we had with them, with locations along Dawson Street, as these improvements will decrease congestion on both intersections, improving traffic in this area on Dawson Street. So that sums up our first waiver request. Would you like to ask questions at this time on that one? We'll move to the second.
What was the justification in changing it from a full access to one-way access points?
Sure. So it allowed us to add this right turn lane to go into the site, giving some storage and getting that traffic turning out of the main travel ways. So that was one of the main justifications there.
All right, thank you.
What is that structure between the right-of-way and the building? That's between it's between the sidewalk and the building? What is that? What am I looking at there? Is that seating or is that something else?
So that is,
I think that's I believe that's the proposed pedestrian area and seating for the front. Planning asked that we activate the street fronts.
Understood, I didn't. Okay, thank you. Any other questions on the 230 variance? Okay.
okay, great. There we go. So the second waiver request is on South 17th Street, the driveway. So the requirement is driveways on major thoroughfares to have a property line offset of 75 feet and be at least 230 feet from intersecting street when the lot has sufficient frontage. Our proposal is to keep the existing drive, and it is currently offset from the property line at about 21 feet. I'll go to the aerial and then come back for our justification. So the plan has been rotated here, so Dawson Street would be on plan left, 17th Street's to plan north. So to the right of the property outlined in red, you can see the existing driveway. We're proposing to keep that existing driveway, and that would be both for ingress and egress. And it currently sits at about 22 feet from the property line, so we're asking for it to remain as is. So our justification, this access driveway, again, is existing and it's functional. Shifting the driveway north would result in closer proximity to the signalized intersection of Dawson and 17th and would conflict with the 230-foot separation requirement for corner lots. So I'm happy to answer any questions about that request.
Any questions about either one?
Was there a dimension from the intersection to that driveway? Is that, I'm looking on the plan sheet that I have and I see a 220 plus or minus. Does that sound familiar?
That does, I think that's very close.
Okay.
Can you clarify, I'm seeing on this exhibit here, it's not entirely related, but there's a sidewalk that's the public sidewalk that's crossing obviously within the right-of-way, and is there another sidewalk connection proposed there adjacent to the building? It's crossing that sort of entrance lane?
Yes.
It's crossing twice?
That ingress lane, as you're starting to come into the site, there's a sidewalk coming from the building, heading plan north, crossing that driveway, and then connecting to the 17th Street sidewalk.
Okay, that's a code requirement for connection to public sidewalks or something?
I believe it is a requirement, but Circle K would like to do it regardless.
Okay.
It's, okay. It's funny, it's not on the
Yeah,
the
that's why
diagram
I
that we were
mentioned it.
given today, so.
So it's not shown on the one you have in front of you. I apologize for a little bit of mix-up on our scaling error and our rush to get it out. Something may have been missing from that plan.
No problem.
And speaking
Maybe
of,
just for my clarification, is South 17, is that a city street or DOT road?
It is a state road, NC DOT road.
Did DOT weigh in at all on the
Yes.
driveway similar to the one on Dawson?
We did, when we had a meeting with NC DOT and WIMPO, we discussed this site in full and talked about all these access points. And their main concern was the changes that we show on Dawson Street. The others they were okay with.
Thank you.
So,
Do anybody else have?
well, back to that sidewalk question, you had mentioned that the site is very interested in having that sidewalk crossing. I guess my concern from pedestrian traffic standpoint is now there'll be 2 sidewalk crossings of that single ingress lane. Would it be amenable to not do that mid-block? I mean, yeah, I'm trying to figure out who would use that. you know.
Sure. You know, and it's just in an area like this, we're always encouraged to make, you know, pedestrian access as easily accessible as possible. We can go back and verify with the city that it is not required, and if it's not, Circle K would certainly be willing to not put that in the plan.
Okay. I mean, on the plan sheet that I have, not the exhibit on the screen,
Sure.
but it just shows sidewalk in front of the structure frontage, which obviously makes sense.
Right, understood.
I guess at some point here, we're going to transition to just general discussion. I'm not sure whether you want to stay up there or sit down. I can't promise we won't ask you any additional questions, but my next question is more for, and I guess we have to open a public hearing in a minute, even though.
And we still have one more waiver request to review
Oh,
too.
you
so
do? Okay, go ahead,
I
sorry.
have a third one, but I'm happy to stand up here as much as you'd like me to
No,
answer questions.
we'll reserve that discussion for shortly.
Okay, that's why I'm here today. So our third request is on South 16th Street. Again, it's a driveway. It's the same requirement as we just discussed on 17th Street, driveways on major thoroughfares, to have a property line offset of 75 feet and be at least 230 feet from an intersecting street when lot has sufficient frontage. So we're proposing here to keep the existing drive again, and this existing drive is offset from the property line about 74 feet. Here's the aerial for this one. So Dawson Street would be on plan right, 16th Street is plan north. You can see the existing driveway in that dimension of 74 feet from the property line. That little area between the driveway and that property line, that is an existing stormwater control measure, and that stormwater control measure will be utilized for the redevelopment of this property. So our justification is this access driveway is existing and functional. Shifting the drive north result in closer proximity to the signalized intersection and would conflict with the 230-foot separation requirement for corner lots.
Are you going to leave both of those driveways alone? Because I guess you're showing a sort of radius configuration. Do you have an aerial of those by any chance?
An existing,
Felt like I saw it somewhere. I apologize if I didn't.
I believe we
Yep.
have that.
Close. Yeah, so there's, yeah, that's probably as good. Well, the one on the left looks like more of a radius style. The one on the right looks like a standard flare. I guess my question is, are you going to leave them the way they are, or are you going to bring them up to whatever current standards are required?
We expect the city would want us to bring them up to current standards, and that would be the intent to do that, just leave them in the same location.
But you're fine with the dimensions as they currently sit?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Because they got 25 radius and 15, and I'm not sure those meet standards, so we're not considering that with this waiver. We're just considering the location.
Right.
Okay.
And, you know, we do have to meet fire standards, so if the radius needs to be increased to meet those types of things, we'll certainly be doing that.
Okay, yeah. I noticed that they were different and didn't know if that was part of the request or if it was just the property line offset. It sounds like it's just the property line offset.
It is, that's correct. And
Okay.
that's a good eye to catch that.
Okay. Any other discussion on any of the three waivers for Mr. Baker? Okay, thank you.
Great.
At this time, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak? Okay.
Sir, you need to be sworn in. To your left. Raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
My My name is Coburn Peterson, and I own the property at 915 South 17th Street. So the south side of the proposal, it's directly east across on 17th Street. And I'm fully in favor of this proposal. I think the two failed drugstores there, I see it as a useful use of the property for the community and the area of that community that exists. I'm fully in favor of it, and some hearsay evidence, the property owner just to the south of the property, across the street from me, is also in favor of it. So I have not heard any opposition to this plan, and I'm fully in favor of this proposal.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else from the public? Okay, yes, sir.
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. For those that came in late and spoke, make sure that you sign in on the clipboard at the back of the room. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Henry Herring. I'm a pharmacist, and I own a pharmacy at 912 South 16th Street that's right across the street from the existing property. I, too, am very pleased to find out about the development that is being proposed here, so we're certainly very in favor of it. I think all of this is useful for the community to have this type of economic spur in the area. My only concern is the amount of water that we get on 16th Street. It is a low area, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with that. Anytime we get rain, the area right there at the corner of 16th and Dawson Street floods very, very quickly. And I just want to encourage the city planning group to make sure that they're looking very closely at the drainage on that property. I am a pharmacist. I'm not an engineer, so I don't know what's appropriate. All I am is a long-term property owner in the area, and I just want to be very careful with any new developments that are brought on there. I just know when I bought one of my pieces of property there, I had to do an underground drainage retention program. I noticed that I know they have a retention pond. It looks like it needs some work, and I certainly expect them to do some work on it and build it up and clean it out and clean out some of the blockage that appears to be there. But that is the biggest concern that I have, is that the city is watching that very closely for everybody's, for safety of the general public and traffic and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Andrew Everhart from David & Associates. We're just across Dawson Street. Our building is about where your 80 is, on the left side of your screen there. And I wanted to reiterate a little bit on the drainage issue. So when we have what I would consider a moderate rain, there's flooding from about your 80 to 74 on your screen. Cars drive through it, some break down, some drive up on our curbs. The water's above the level of the curb in a lot of instances there. So we do have quite a bit of an issue. I have concerns with their entrance that's already in place, mainly because with the heavy rain, the water runs from where the existing building is towards Dawson Street and towards 16th Street, and then actually comes out the current exit and runs into the road. They do have the remediation there, and there's a pond there that I know firsthand is inadequate at this point when there's a moderate or heavier rain. So what sort of additional engineering needs to be done, I'm not positive. I'm an attorney, I'm not an engineer. But I can tell you the current system is not working when there's a moderate or heavy rain. Certainly hurricanes cause a disaster in that stretch of road, really between where the 80-foot mark and the 74-foot mark are. So I'm not sure if adjusting an entrance would help in this scenario, but I think it's worthy of some additional evaluation because currently that side does not work. And I do see, it looks like some additional impervious surface, maybe some trash enclosures there. Currently there's parking spaces there, and I can't quite tell. I know this meeting's not about the design other than the entrance and exits, but I can tell you from what we currently have, we see flooding with a moderate or heavier rain. So we'd like for the commissioners to take that into consideration with anything they do. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that is all for the public hearing. If there's no one else who wishes to speak, I will go ahead and close the public hearing. I will note that this project does still have to go through the Technical Review Committee, and Technical Review Committee will be looking at drainage and the driveway design as part of that, that process.
Thank you. That was going to be my comment as well. Just wanted to make sure that the people that were present understood that this is just step one in the process, and there's a lot more to be done with the site. I was out there taking pictures that we used for this, and there's a lot of site work and updates that are going to be done and required that are going to be improvements to this property. Just very quickly, we wanted to go through the review requirements before any further questions or discussions, if we may. So the request meets the intent of this chapter. The request conforms with the adopted comprehensive plans. It does not increase congestion or compromise safety, and it doesn't create any lots without direct street frontage. I think it's clear that these requests meet this. As Mr. Baker said, they have already met with the WMPO and NCDOT to review the plan and come up with these recommendations to help decrease the congestion and to increase the safety of the site. In addition, the site layout with adjacent properties, again, we're asking to maintain the current access that is in place and was working when the drugstore was in use, and that strict compliance, you know, with the code, I think would pose a safety hazard to move those intersections, the driveways closer to the intersection. So I do think that we've met the requirements for the request for the variance, and again, we're happy to answer any technical questions that you all may have.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, thank you. I guess before we get into the discussion, the same question I ask every meeting. We have two, I think you had grouped your variances in the staff report into two. You know, the applicant had listed three, but I plan to group them and vote on them unless, you know, the committee feels like they need to be separated out into three variances. So that's kind of how I plan to proceed with the discussion. But we don't have to approve the preliminary plan, just the variances, is that correct?
There is no preliminary plan.
Very good. All right. Any discussion on either of the waivers requested? My only sort of question would be more for Dennis, is I do see how on their ingress lane, how the sidewalk is now not perpendicular to the crossing. Would there be any benefit to realigning that to cross at a 90-degree angle to shorten that length of crossing? I mean, I know this is going to have to go through the TRC, and they can work those details out, but since this is a driveway-related waiver, that is something I think that is up for discussion at least.
Yeah, it wouldn't hurt to make it perpendicular to traffic. There is benefit to the pedestrian to be directly facing the incoming traffic, walk against traffic, so you'll have the best sight distance. With it being a 16-foot driveway at that skew, you're talking about a 3 or 4 foot difference. It's a single lane. If it were a dual lane driveway, possibly, but with traffic entering in one direction and exiting in one direction, I don't have too much of a concern with the skewed crossings there.
Okay, well, we'll leave that up to the TRC. I mean, the TRC may have some concerns or objection when they go through with that. I'm just not, I didn't know if it was something we needed to add as a condition, if this is, something we were in favor of. Any other discussion on this?
The only other discussion just for the group, while it shows a 67-foot distance from 17th Street to that driveway, I think it's kind of important from, maybe even from the applicant's perspective, is that the entering traffic will be entering that turn lane well before that 67-foot dimension because of the provided full width storage and the taper. So that, that could essentially double, so it's closer to the 120. Obviously they can't attain the 230, but it makes it a little better. I think the vehicular access, ingress and egress will be occurring essentially in that mid-block area.
Yeah, and I understand they've met with the NCDOT and the MPO over this configuration, and to me, it also seems better than a single, full access point to me. Any issues from fire access?
No, we would approach this from the existing functional accesses both off 16th and 17th Street. The ingress coming in on Dawson, we would be able to get up there if we need be, but we would probably, the wider the area and the more maneuverability we would have, and where the equipment would be approaching from is your big thoroughfares on 16th and 17th Street with the existing driveway. So I have no concerns for the change that's being made over on Dawson Street. It's not going to affect fire response.
Okay.
And the only other comment I had was on the two driveways on 16th and 17th Street. I personally feel like driveway flares, the standard driveway flares, would not create a roadway type connection, from a private site. We wouldn't want somebody shooting down 16th Street, making it look like a street.
Agreed.
Shoot through the entire site to head out to 17th Street. So I would think a flare with elevation, that could help with the drainage situation.
Right, and I mean, we're considering the location. The design of the driveway isn't part of consideration for today, and I assume that would be handled by TRC. One of the driveways, the one off 17th Street, to my eye, looks like a flare style, it's more of a city standard. The one off 16th Street, I can't tell from the information provided, and I know I looked at this, but I can't recall. I looked at all three of the driveways are just blending together in my head. So I honestly don't know, but the TRC will review that and make a determination, as well as the drainage issues that were mentioned.
So just from my understanding, that all rain that falls on this site will be contained within this site. That's the intent of the stormwater permit.
That is the intent of the stormwater pond, is to collect on-site drainage, not off-site drainage, and discharge it to the public right-of-way. But part of the review for any project is to review that outfall point as well. So that'll be part of the TRC review. And this has not been, Brian, to formal TRC yet, or it has?
It has not.
Okay, understood. So that will still be reviewed as part of that. Any other discussion? If so, do we have a motion on either of the variances?
I'll make a motion on adjustment number 1. I make a motion to approve the requested adjustment. One, primarily the block length itself does not allow for 230 feet along a major thoroughfare to be attained in either direction, so they're kind of hemmed in on this site. Secondarily, it looks like the site is providing a place for vehicles to decelerate and store out of the flow of traffic prior to entering the site, which is a benefit to the site traffic and to the traveling public along Dawson Street. And thirdly, I think having that long ingress lane actually provides a little more site safety. You don't have parked cars or anybody trying to access the fuel tanks from that driveway.
Agreed, and I will second that. Any other discussion? All in favor of approval of the first waiver, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And then again, the second waiver is of the 75-foot property line offset. I guess the applicant split it into two. It's grouped into one on the staff report. So we can look at it either way. I would prefer to just keep them grouped if there's no need to break them out. Any discussion on that?
No, I'd like to make a motion to approve item 2, the location of the driveways along 16th Street and 17th Street in their current location, or to allow it in the current location due to the site constraints, the short distance to the major thoroughfare of Dawson Street. I think the locations maximize the distance away from the signalized intersections that would allow for an improvement or to retain the safety from those signalized intersections.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Variance is approved. Thank you. I guess that's the last and only item on the agenda, so we are adjourned. Thank you.